Welcome to the ACC Panic Room alongside Lauren Brownlow. I'm Joe Ovies. As Hubert Davis said in the Final Four, Lauren, we had live action out there at Wallace Wade Stadium. And I don't know if the live action was which team wanted to do things to hand it back to the other squad, if the live action was in terms of
Sometimes
all the
literally.
replays that you literally, or was it all the replay reviews? I mean, there was all
Yeah.
sorts of action at Wallace Wade that resulted in North Carolina pulling it out there in the end with a just key offensive series by Drake May in the offense.
I don't feel like a UNC game ever ends even remotely close to 3 hours. Like, props to State and Syracuse today. They ended like pretty much right at it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then we have Carolina, as usual, going. And I'm not even saying it's all their fault. Like, this game in particular, like you said, there were a ton of reviews. Really choppy second half, I thought, after like a pretty entertaining and not as choppy first half. It was back
Yeah.
and forth, and there weren't many stoppages and penalties and stuff like that. And then the second half started, and it was a mess.
Duke was a mess. There's a couple things, and there's a lot to get into today from NC State's loss at Syracuse, as you mentioned. That was a pretty efficient game, but also a frustrating game if you're an NC State fan watching it. And Clemson continues to kind of look like they're back in the ACC. But specific to the Carolina Duke game, I felt that the end of the first half and the way they started the second half, Mike Elko would like that back.
Yes.
I thought Duke handled the end of the first half amazingly well until ... They got the ball back they got good field position, milked the clock the best they could, scored a touchdown knowing that they were going to get the ball to start the second half, and they had about like a minute 30, minute 20 something left, and they allowed Carolina to go. I mean, again, great response by Carolina's offense. We know they're very dangerous. We know they're explosive.
It
I
felt
thought Duke,
like Duke had like, if you believe in such things as momentum, right? It
yes.
felt like Duke had the momentum in that moment, and
Mhm.
they just kind of let Carolina steal it going into half, and it carried over
Yep.
as the second half started. They were able to get it back, to their credit, but it did feel like
Sure, but
yeah.
we can get caught up in officiating, which I know you and I don't like to do anymore because it's pretty freaking exhausting. But there were two touchdowns that were wiped off that were curious for Duke, unfortunately, including there at the end that ended up being a chop block. And yeah, I mean, based on that replay, it ended up getting the right call there. But that's two touchdowns that were taken off the board, followed by a missed field goal that happened after that. So it's just, and I know Mike Elko was super mad at a pass interference call at the end. And then there was the review, which, depending on the review on the game-winning touchdown for the Tar Heels with Green's catch, it all came down to Green, literally. Could you
Yeah.
see Green between the cleat and the
Yeah.
sideline, the paint in the end zone? And it could have been camera. I mean, I think they got it right in that the play had to
Yeah.
stand as it was called, because it's inconclusive as to what that line was. Was it a shadow from the cleat itself? Was it actual green? I don't know. So they had to call it the way they did.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's interesting too, because you wondered where it was going to go. It could go literally anywhere. Because again, and I just have to reiterate this for people, you never need to chalk up to like malice or to like conspiracy. What can be chalked up far easier and more sensibly to incompetence. Okay? Like, you guys watch ACC games every week and talk about the refs being bad, and yet some of us out there, and not just fans, by the way, like sometimes media members even do this, pretend as if there's a certain outcome of the game that's requested. Well, then why, pray tell, did they reverse the incomplete pass fumble call? Like, you could absolutely have argued there wasn't enough evidence to overturn that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they reversed it and gave the ball to Duke. I don't have a problem with it. It was, I can see how they would have done it. It didn't make much difference to me, but it's like, well, if they were really trying to give Carolina the game, wouldn't they have just let them keep that one? It would have been easily excusable. And
Yeah.
yet they didn't. So why did they wait until Duke got to the goal line to unveil their master plan? Like, what are we even doing right now?
Yeah, don't confuse inconsistency and incompetence for actual
Yes.
conspiracy. This is where our friend Michael Felder, if you read his newsletter, he likes to point this out. Tell me you don't watch other leagues. Tell me
That's
you
the
don't
thing.
watch other games. Tell me you don't
Yes.
watch, countless sporting events without telling me you don't watch countless sporting events. Basically, you act as though what's happening to your team is the only time it ever happens. No, just watch other stuff. You'll see that a lot of it has to be, unfortunately, overcome. But with Duke, there's two storylines to this game between Duke and Carolina. The first one is a lot of credit to Mike Elko for instantly coming in and reviving Duke after what had
Yes.
been a slow atrophy under David Cutcliffe, unfortunately. And most people understand, you and I are big fans of David Cutcliffe, but I think we also understood towards the end of that program. We've talked about this on the Panic Room. So I think the way Elko has been able to keep this team, even with some injuries and going into this game against Carolina, where they easily could have been boat raced by that offense, found a way to game plan to slow Carolina's offense down a little bit and also be very aggressive play calling wise with Riley Leonard and their offense. And I thought they did a really good job taking advantage of that. The problem is Duke's not quite there yet, personnel wise. And I mean, if you really wanted to oversimplify the outcome of this game, it wasn't a Drake May versus Riley Leonard
No.
situation. It was who has Josh Downs and who doesn't. And a healthy Josh Downs continues to be a huge difference maker for this Tar Heels team. And the reason why I'm going to like their chances more often than not the rest of the way in the Coastal.
Right. But also the other part about that is like it's not like Duke was defending him poorly. That's the thing. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
just they did everything they could do. Carolina and this goes for Carolina's offense as a whole as well. Like they did their best in most positions. They did make some mistakes, I think, obviously, but like
Sure.
Carolina's offense is just what it is. And they actually did well, I think, to hold them down as much as they did. They still managed to make plays. And the other part of it too is like Duke as a whole was way more resilient than we've seen them in the last couple of years. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think Carolina went up by double digits twice,
Yep.
in the second half. And Duke still managed to fight back and they had the lead until whatever it was, 14 seconds to go or whatever it was, 16 seconds. Like they had the lead and easily could have won that game. So to me, I think that's pretty impressive. And we absolutely, I think, would have seen a Duke team give up far before this one did.
Oh, easily. And I know, look, you and I have a separate text thread during games.
Oh my God.
And, I told you, I'm like, Carolina, even with Duke having a hot start and it looked like things were gonna, and Carolina was making mistakes and whatnot, it looked like Duke might be running away with this thing. I was like, Carolina's fine, they'll win this game. And to your point, Carolina's defense simply cannot be trusted. However, when you look at the rest of the Coastal and the way
Right.
things have shaken out, I still like Carolina, flaws and all defensively, to still come out, which is going to be the most ironic of results this season, given all of the attention that was given to NC State down the highway ahead of this season, where NC State was viewed as having an opportunity to take advantage of Clemson being in a somewhat nebulous place. At least at the beginning of the season, we still thought that was the case. That's been proven to be wrong. And NC
Right.
State's season went from, ooh, this isn't going the way we thought it was going to go, but they're still winning, to, all right, they whiffed against Clemson, but hey, they still got some winnable games down the stretch. There's still, you never know. Maybe Clemson loses some games. I mean, there was still like a sliver of something. There was at least there was something. The New Year's Six bowl
For
game,
sure.
something. But then Devin Leary is now done for the rest of the season because of a torn pec. Then they go to Syracuse. And I think more deflating than the Devin Leary injury news is the fact that State fans went into the game at Syracuse thinking defensively and maybe creative offensive game plan wise, because we've seen Tim Beck do this before with Bailey Hockman.
Yep.
They can find a way to leave Syracuse with a win, get the open date, take care of business against Virginia Tech, and then see where you're at against Wake Forest, right? Just find some semblance of something before the Wake Forest game. Not to say that they were going to beat Wake Forest, just that, hey, give
Right.
yourself a chance. And I think today was a culmination of things that were there and always there before Devin Leary's injury kind of took all of the air out of NC State season. This is a team that offensively never really found an identity. and how much of that is what they are made up of, their wide receiver group, as we've discussed, an offensive line that might have regressed a little bit. You remember Cat Barber, Lauren,
Of
the
course.
basketball player?
Scared
Um,
money.
Bingo. For those who don't know, Cat Barber's
Scared money
mom,
don't make money.
Cat Barber's mom would sit behind us, at basketball games when we used to sit. Our little media seats were there on the sideline. And Cat Barber would yell to Mark Godfrey, the head coach at the time, "Scared money don't make money." I want Cat Barber's mom to be all up in Tim Beck and Dave Doran's ear. Scared money don't make money, because that's ultimately what this season's going to come down to. A lot of scared money don't make money for the Wolfpack.
I feel like 2020 in a weird way for State was like so freeing for Dave Doran.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like we were getting a new Dave in a lot of ways. And I do think some of that carried over to last season. Like I do. I think that he had that balance of he's always going to err on the side of being a little more conservative, right? That's just who Dave Doran is. But I thought he balanced that well with taking risks in spots where it made sense to take them. And now it's weird. It's like the offense is called as if like, I don't know. It's hard to even explain. It's like someone has a bomb and if it goes too fast, it'll explode like speed or something.
Speed.
It's really weird. It's like
Keanu Reeves is up in the box.
It's like they're being very careful all the time, and then it's still not working out, and they're still making mistakes, and they're just so tight offensively, and it's been like that all year. It's been like that all year. The offensive line hasn't played as well as anybody thought, and now they're still getting all these procedural penalties, the false starts, and everything else, and then. The way they call plays, like, honestly, I thought they called this game, quarterback-wise, as if this was the game Leary got injured in. Like, it was almost like they just found out.
Yeah.
And that was baffling to me because it just seemed like there was no coherence to it. There were still weird play calls in certain spots that you go, why? And nothing was working. Whenever something was working, it was like they would immediately go away from it.
I'll be curious. I'll be curious to see. I'll be curious to see once we get away from Saturday and there's a lead up to the Virginia Tech game, what kind of questions Dave Doran will get asked. What kind of game plan they'll have going forward between MJ Morris and Jack Chambers, the walk on from Charleston Southern. I know it's a cliche to say that. When you play not to lose, that's typically what happens. And I do feel like this has been NC State's problem the entire season. This is not just what we saw tonight against Syracuse. It started against ECU, where they get in a mode of playing not to lose. I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. I know after the Texas Tech win, I kind of tried to understand with what their philosophy of the season was going to be. We're not going to, that NC State has the attitude of we're not going to win sexy, but we're just going to find a way to win. We'll do it with our defense, and we'll get in and get out of there offensively with what we need to do. And while they've had some injuries, look, everybody's dealt with injuries at this point. They're playing not to lose. And when you do that, you turtle up and you get what happened at Syracuse.
And I think that's the frustration. That is the frustration, I think, for most State fans. It's not that they lost Devin Leary and now they're going hard on Dave Doran because, even though their quarterback's out and they're being crazy. No, I think it's also they just want to see that, they're still trying to win football games. And it's been frustrating for them to watch all year. And I think I certainly at least thought that they would play a little freer in this game and just do their best, go for broke, let it all hang out. And then you see, even that end of half sequence was so baffling to me. They let the clock run almost all the way down on that 3rd and 4. They burned a bunch of that clock, and then they get a first down, and then he calls timeout. I'm like, why are you even calling a timeout? You seem to just want to go to half a minute ago. I don't understand. Why not try to get the 3rd and 4 and see if there's a way you can get a quick score before the half, And that's that. I didn't understand it. Maybe there's a reason beyond what we saw. I don't know, but it's baffling to me. And I just think State fans want to see them just go for it. If they lose, they lose, but at least you're trying,
Yeah, exactly. And that's not what they're doing. I got a lot of tweets like this from State fans tonight. This is from Patrick Riley. I sincerely hate to say this, but I will be kind of excited if Doran leaves to freshen up everything from top to bottom. Again, it's a like, hey, Dave's done a good job. Objectively speaking, you can look at NC State's program and say it's healthy. I would say, I think Lauren, you'll agree with this. For as long as I've been here, and I've been around for the end of the Mike O'Kane era, the Chuck Amata era, the Tom O'Brien era, and now Dave Doran, that this is actually the most consistent and best run NC State has been.
Yeah.
They recruit relatively well.
Hmm.
They've developed players,
Defense
and
is excellent.
they've had these windows that they haven't punched through, they haven't taken advantage of, but the fact that they have these windows is a positive. And again, like Dave's got a pretty good track record in terms of bringing attention to NC State too, with the NFL pipeline and everything else. But when you look at the overall record, you look at the chances to get over on non-conference teams. The Texas Tech win was a big deal for that reason. Last year, finally breaking through against Clemson at home against that Clemson team, which required overtime. Again, these are the types of things that fans can objectively look at it and go, "That's great," but now there's layers to this. There could be a very harsh conversation to be had about, well, what exactly is NC State's ceiling, if we're being honest, as a historically 500 program? And the same could be said about other triangle programs as well, like Carolina.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And that's the
as some.
thing around here, right? Isn't that the pattern? Whenever either team goes into the season
Mhm.
with any expectation, everyone else around here is just waiting with bated breath to dunk on them when they inevitably don't live up to it. And I don't know why no one learns that it could easily be your team next time. Like,
Yeah,
I say the same thing to Carolina fans I'm like, do y'all not remember just last year when you were
right.
bemoaning people trying to dunk on y'all? Like, it's wild to me. Like, no one learns in the Carolinas. Everyone wants everyone to have bad things, which that part I understand a little
Well,
bit.
that's peak triangle conversation. It's like some Carolina fans that I've seen on the timeline. I forgot exactly who it was who had tweeted this out, so apologies. But essentially, it was that night when they were honoring the 1997 UNC team. It was this like, hey, this is when UNC did this in 1997. I thought that this was the beginning of something for the Tar Heels.
Here's the
Little did
thing.
we know. Little did
Let
we
me
know that
interject.
we might have viewed the peak of Carolina football at that time.
I was going to say, because I was at that game as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
we had season tickets, went all the time. What that game showed to me was, oh, this is as good as it's ever going to get, and it's still not going to be good enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was kind of like wild to think about. But that's what I took from it. Like, I saw people say that, but I was like, I did not take that from that game at all.
This was my favorite tweet of the night. 2022 NC State more overrated than 2021 UNC. That is
We're all just
uh,
crabs in a bucket here.
I mean, if I want to answer that question honestly, it's 2021 UNC and it's not even close for two reasons. One, I never understood why the 21 UNC team got the level of preseason hype that it did with all the questions it had, whereas NC State actually had legitimate reasons to be viewed as a top 25 team, as a fringe, top 15 team or whatever it was, given everything that had been coming back. Number two, who did UNC lose to in 2021? Who has NC State lost to in 2022? Both on the road to ranked opponents. That was not the case with UNC. You asked the question. I figured I'd answer
That's
it
a
as
good
honestly
point.
as
I
I
think
can.
you're right. And call me when State loses to Virginia Tech, and then maybe we'll
Yeah,
talk.
look, if State loses to Virginia Tech, and of
Yeah.
course there's the injury factor too with Devin Leary, but as we just discussed,
No,
a
I
lot
don't
of
care
this,
if they're
a
if
lot of
two
this
of their
was
quarterbacks are out. They should not lose that football game.
a lot of this was evident even before Devin Leary's injury, in terms of how NC State's season was going to go.
Right.
Speaking of which, I guess we should just kind of close on this, and it's kind of Clemson's world again, right? As great as we could talk about NC State all day, but shout out to Dino Babers, who has completely revitalized where he was at Syracuse, where people were wondering if his time was short with the Orange, to an undefeated season with the Orange right now. I don't know how it was possible today. I mean, not that I spent a lot of time watching Syracuse football, I'll admit. My understanding was they were defense and run. I was not expecting
Oh
Schrader
no.
to. like throw freaking dimes out there today.
Oh
And
no,
that and that's
they've been
and
offensively very strong this year
yeah.
overall. I mean, they're a weird team because again, honestly, Syracuse plays well into my theory that everyone besides Clemson is really the coastal. Because Syracuse is super coastally, in my opinion. I mean, they almost lost to Virginia at home not that
Yeah.
long ago. Virginia, we've all seen Virginia, yes?
Hmm.
And so, like, I still don't know how good they are. It's wild to me. Like, I know they're good, but are they undefeated good? Like, no, in my opinion. But how good are they? Like, are they 10-win good? I don't really see that yet, but and their schedule's super backloaded, so they're gonna get everybody at the end. But I am very happy for Dino Babers. I just need someone in Syracuse to ask him about House of the Dragon so that we can get his take on the new Thrones franchise. Dino's he's very pleasant to talk to. He's funny.
Yeah.
He's very likable. I'm glad to see that he's turned things around because I was very concerned this was his last year, and it does not seem to be the case as of now.
And meanwhile, now I'm not trying to put Syracuse on Clemson's level. I think Clemson, what they've been able to
No.
do, has been pretty impressive. And what I think is actually a more fair comparison is of how we talk about things and we kind of talk ourselves into things. I am guilty of talking myself into thinking that Clemson's window was still the opportunity to beat Clemson was still there. That Dabo might have gotten it wrong in believing in DJ Uiagalelei the way that he did, but DJ's been great. Um, it's the Florida State part of it, this equation, and what they did to Florida State today. This is a Florida State team that a lot of people had some optimism for with Mike Norvell. And they started off the year, obviously, with a little bit of adventure, but a win against LSU. They've now lost to Wake, they've lost to NC State, they've lost to Clemson. And these are the games that if you're Florida State matter a heck of a lot more to judge where exactly you're back. They still got a ways to go. And this is a credit to Wake Forest and what Dave Clawson's built. And while they did lose to Clemson, that's not to say they still can't have a pretty special season, all things considered.
Oh yeah.
And that at the rate things are going, I expect them to beat NC State in a few weeks.
I don't put teams in my trust tree easily.
I know you
Wake
don't.
Forest is as close as it gets. I look at Carolina's last 5 games, and other than the Virginia game, which, as I tweeted earlier, if you lose that one, just skip the bowl game because you don't deserve it. But
right.
Every one of the other games, Pitt at Wake, Georgia Tech at home, even because they beat the crap out of them last year, and then NC State. Could we honestly say we're sure they're winning all 4 of those?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. Do I think they win most of them? I guess. Do I think they could go 2-2? Yes. I don't trust them yet. They're not in my trust tree. And it's not because of their offense. Their offense is fantastic, but like we said, you can't trust the defense. And so, yeah, I don't know that they're in my trust tree, but Wake Forest is as close as a non-Clemson team has gotten to my trust tree.
You know who's in my trust tree? Debbie, yeah.
Who's it?
She told me that it's time to retire the candles. It's time to retire. Look, I'll say this about the candles. Imagine if I didn't have the candles.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
I'm just saying. Lord, I'm just saying.
Know why
if I
Debbie
didn't
said
have the
that.
candles.
You and I both know why Debbie said that, and it has nothing to do with not liking your candles. What's the reason? Just tell everybody why Debbie wants you to retire the candles.
Why does Debbie want me to retire the candles?
Well, if you don't know, I'll let you know. It's because she doesn't believe in NC State stuff, and she thinks the fixation on it is harmful to NC State athletics.
I know that's what she thinks. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the ACC Panic Room. I hope that Carolina was respectful in the visitors' locker room at Wallace Wade today.
God.
Hopefully they left mints on the pillow when they leave.
Pillow? There ain't a pillow in that locker room.
No. Hopefully they left the sanitation strips to put on the toilets up as they left, just to show how clean they were. Which was when you get to
or something?
No, you know what happens when you get to a hotel room, to show you they clean the toilets, they put the little sanitation strip on it.
I feel like I haven't seen one of those in a while. Maybe I'm staying at the wrong hotels.
I was going to say, or am I showing my age?
I was like, I haven't seen one of those in quite some time.
It's entirely possible.
It's just a strip. You don't know. They
It's a
could
good
have just
point. They
not
could have
cleaned
just.
it and put a
You're
strip
right.
on
They
there.
could have just put it on and said it was clean.
Yeah, the
That's
strip
what
tells me
Carolina should
nothing.
do. That's what Carolina should have done. Anyway, that's gonna wrap it up for this edition. We will see y'all later in the